Hey everyone, welcome back to Dev Parkour. In this video, I want to take a small little PHP app that I wrote over the last couple days and turn the views into a little React app. This is something that I've run into over the years and never really had a short, compact, concise way to describe it to people. But I think as as we're working with legacy applications, we're going to find ourselves needing to take kind of server-generated views and turn them into like a modern web application. So one note: this video is going to be kind of the whirlwind tour of it. I will take some shortcuts, but I'll try as hard as I can to actually call out the shortcuts that I'm taking. The main reason that I'm going to take these shortcuts is just so that the video doesn't get too long. I want to focus on the meat of actually deconstructing the server generated views and turning them into React components. Rather than dealing with the fiddly bits of how to set up Webpack and make it work with your existing web server and that sort of thing. But again, I will mention that these are things that realistically you should deal with. But I'll fix them off camera and maybe show what I did at a later date. But I really want to focus on that conversion of view to React component. So let's switch over to Visual Studio Code and get started. So first off, I want to show you basically what the application does. It is a little contact form app, and you can see it really just has one controller, default controller. Basically, it takes a generic name. Basically, any route is valid. Actually, let's pull up routes. By the way, this is using the latest version of Pales and kind of the latest guidance with respect to how to organize your files. So rather than one giant config file, one giant config/application.php, you have an initializer for each of the different steps in your application. So you can see here's my routes, get and post, and it's basically the action on default controller to run, which really, because of the magic of PHP, there is no action with any of those names. Everything goes through this call function, which checks to see if it's a get or a post. All other methods are invalid. And if it's a get, we perform get contact form, which basically looks up the contact form in the database, gives a 404 if it doesn't find it, and then prints a little view to the screen, which we'll look at in just a second. This is just a simple Pales active record call. Basically, look in the database and find a contact form by what I'm calling slug, which if we look at the database, this is basically the table. So it's got a slug field, which is basically going to be the URL. So in this case, we'll be using /demo as our contact form. And then everything else is customizable. The subject in the email that gets sent, the email address to send this contact form email to, a label for the name field, a placeholder for the name field, same thing for the email field, same thing for the message field, the text for the submit button, and then a little message afterward once you've clicked submit to say, thank you for submitting your information or something like that. And if we look at data, you can see I've added just one called demo form submission, sends to me, and then some other customizations here. So let's actually pull that up. Let's see what that looks like. So if I go over here, you can see localhost /demo. This is the app running on my local machine. And this is all the customizations that I've made to that form. So you can see John Doe, which is the placeholder that I added, john@example.com, the email address placeholder, your email address, your name. Those are all the things that I configured in the database. And if I type in my name, and some email addresses. And I click send. In just a second, you'll see a little pop-up down here. Well, first you'll see your message has been sent, and in just a second I will receive that email, and it'll show that information. So while we're waiting on that, let's go ahead and look at the rest of the code. So what happened when I clicked that send button? Again, it looked up the contact form, and if it didn't find it, it would give a 404. And then we're using Pale's action mailer to send the email, received submission, and passing it basically all the post variables and the original form, and then deliver it. Right. And then once it does that, let's go off to another view, and we'll pass in the form as its model so that we can show that that successfully sent message. There we go. Now the email came in. You can see the message is hi there. Brian B. Parks at brianparks.me. That information is the stuff that I put in the contact form. This email is not very advanced right now, but it basically shows the information that was submitted. So let's go to views default and contact form, and this is where we get the actual contact form. And you can see it interpolates the label for the name field, placeholder for the name field, and so on and so forth. And then when the message is sent, this is the page that gets shown. There's no styling, there's no extra stuff. In fact, adding in all our standard HTML stuff was I kind of got carried away here. The reason I made it so stripped down was so that we could really focus in on exactly the things that we're going to change, that we're going to modify to turn this into a React application. So let's do this really quickly. So there's our directory, and we can see right now we just have this server directory. So let's create a well, let's first make sure that create React apps still exists, which it does. So let's see what our options are. Let's try that again. There we go. -- help. All right. So this is the important part. We want to specify a template because I do want to use TypeScript like that guy. So let's do this. And I actually do want to use npm. I think by default, whatever version I have is Yarn. You would use Yarn, but I really do want to use npm. So create React app, and then project directory, and then options. We'll call this UI, and then -- use npm -- template is CRA template TypeScript. CRA template TypeScript. Hit enter. All right, now that is all installed, let's do npm start. Let's try going into the UI directory and then do npm start. All right, now we have the React app running. So now we have a couple things we need to do. First thing we need to do is remove all the boilerplate. Second thing, or not the boilerplate, but the initial kind of template stuff. Second thing we need to do is replace it with our contact form template. Third thing we need to do is create an endpoint on the back end in the PHP app that basically just provides the contact form information for the React app to consume. And then the fourth thing is we need to wire the two together so that we can actually get that information and render it accordingly, right? Okay, so let's start with removing all the initial stuff. So let's collapse server. Let's expand UI. So that would be in source, and let's you know what? I'll leave some of this stuff, but app.tsx. Let's just get rid of all of that. Let's get rid of all of that. We'll leave that. Some of this stuff, basic stuff, is pretty nice. But we'll start with that. Okay, now let's go grab that view. And the nice thing is that where we're starting from, we actually have a let me save that real quick. We actually have a decent starting point where this is already fairly separated out. It's mostly HTML with a few spots here and there that are PHP echo statements. So obviously I'm not going to worry about the HTML stuff. I do want the form though. Well, I think I want the form. At least for now, we'll keep the form. We'll probably get rid of it later on. But let's start with that. And Prettier is going to say this is all sorts of bad because we've got PHP in here still. So let's first just give ourselves a variable, something like that, just so that we can start replacing some of this stuff and gradually build up something that seems reasonable. Right, that sort of thing. So what we'll actually do is name label. Yeah, we're actually going to type this. Since we are using TypeScript, let's call this contact form. All of these are going to be strings. Just to make the compiler happy for now. Yeah, it's possibly undefined. This is one of the fun parts of TypeScript is eventually we will need to have this be something reasonable. So let's start with actually let's do something different. Let's say if the contact form is undefined, return that. This is going to be super frustrating, isn't it? But I promise it's not undefined at this point. Let's just do this. Yeah, and Prettier is still going to have issues because we still have PHP in here. So let's go fix that. All right, and now Prettier is happy. All right, so now we have contact form, and all of those properties are interpolated. So now, with that, we can actually get rid of all this loading nonsense because that didn't work. All right, Prettier does its job for us. And now we can actually go over here and you'll see this is the React app and it renders the form with obviously no stuff there. So now let's go back to the back end and give ourselves a JSON endpoint that we can get this information from. So initially, I'm not going to change anything here, but what I am going to do is add a new route. So now we have two new routes, one for get, one for post, and it's basically the hash, or that should really be slug, but it doesn't really matter. And no, this actually, to make things easier, this is going to be ID, because that's actually a magical value. And the action is going to be with JSON. So let's create that with JSON method. We need to get the contact form by slug. And if we don't find it, we'll actually return this JSON and an empty object. Otherwise, we will return the actual JSON content. Which there's actually a bug in how all this works. This syntax will not work, unfortunately. So what we have to do is JSON decode form to JSON, I believe. So now, if we actually go to let's go to that URL. That would help. There we go. Now we have all of that as JSON. All right, so now that we have that in place, we can actually start using this in our React app. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's start with use effect. And it automatically imported. That's cool. And what do we want to do? We want to fetch from, we don't have HTTPS, we just have HTTP. And this is one of the shortcuts that I'm taking. I'm actually just hard coding this URL in here. Realistically, we would want to get this URL from somewhere, configuration, something like that. And we'd want to get this from probably part of the URL, part of the route. Use something like React Router and just pull that parameter out of the route. But for right now, we're going to just fetch and we'll wait that. This does need to be async. Oh, what is it? No, this actually needs to be, it's probably actually just easier if we use the promise syntax and not await. So do then, this will be response, and this will be response.json, and then dot then JSON. We'll need to store this somewhere, right? So this will be set contact form JSON. Now, obviously, set contact form does not exist. But what we should do is change this to use state. Use state. Come on, there we go. And this is typed, so we can just do contact form like that. And then this will be contact form. Not sure why that didn't get automatically imported, but whatever. And now, when we load this, it'll fire off to /demo/JSON. That's the one we want. And then it should actually load all the information. Let's see what happens. Failed to fetch. Let's see what's going on. Has been blocked by cores. All right. That's okay. Let's fix that. I believe something like, boom, there we go. And that is everything that we were looking for. Now, if we put some stuff in, cannot post slash. Well, of course not. Let's actually take out that form because it was trying to post back to the Webpack dev server. That's not going to work. So let's do that, and let's give this an on-click of what should we do? We should probably submit this, right? Submit form. Let's create a function. You can either do function submit form or that sort of thing, right? Let's do, it's basically going to be this, except this will be a post, right? And body will be, we actually don't want JSON.stringify, we want a form. And I could actually do like a ref or something like that. But what I actually want to do is probably use state for this. So let's take this out. All right, the question is, how do we really want to do this? And let's just say name, email, right? Something like that. And now, obviously, we need name, email, and message to exist. So let's create state for those. There are better ways to do this, but this is kind of the quick and dirty, what you normally start out with sort of scenario. So use state. Let's try to get our syntax right. That's a string. All of these are strings. And then what we'll do is add an onChange to all of these instead of the names. And if we're going to do that, we actually need to set the value as well. All right, and now we're going to run this, and if it's successful, we don't want to set the contact form to JSON. We actually want to set something. Let's do something like set submitted true and const submitted set submitted received message is what we want here. Boom, and that should be all good to go. So now let's see what we can do. There we go, your message has been sent. And I see no errors here, so in just a few seconds we should probably see that message come through. I'm not going to wait for that to come through to continue the video. Yeah, free up storage space. I'm running out of disk space on my computer. That was not the email, but that's basically how to do it. Basically, we took a PHP view and turned it into a React component, and it's all running. Obviously, I haven't shown how to package it, how to deploy it to production, anything like that. This was just the bare minimum, the meat of making that transition. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, if you haven't already subscribed, and click that notification bell so that you'll be notified when I create new videos and when I post them. If you have any questions, comments, topics for future videos, anything you'd like to see, any questions you have for me, go ahead and leave those in the comment section down below. I really enjoy reading the comments. If I don't respond to you, I've seen this happen a few times recently. If I don't respond to you, it's not because I don't want to, but I've seen some comments get posted and then they just disappear. I don't know what happens to them. I don't know if YouTube has decided to delete them or what's going on, but for one reason or another, they disappear. I do want to respond to them, especially if they're really well thought out comments, even especially the longer ones. I get so excited about wanting to respond to them, and then I go look for where they are to try to reply to them, and I just can't find them. So if you have posted a comment and I haven't replied to it, I'm sorry. I really want to. I do appreciate your comments, and I would love to be able to respond, but I just have no way to. I physically cannot. So sorry about that, but it is what it is. With that, I'm going to close the video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.